I need it.
Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Tried to see eye to eye with you.
Got another new episode of How Did We Get Here? I'm your host, Jay Carter. We got my man that's always heard and never, ever, ever seen Skeens.
What up, people?
Welcome again, guys. We appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Again, better than your average is the movement in the channel. How did we get here is the show. We got two cousins that are like brothers that are talking any and everything and the process. So again, we welcome y'all once again. Today we actually have a special guest for our first phone interview. This is a young man that I have known. I was trying to think about it since probably like 96, somewhere in there, something like that.
Give or take.
You know what I mean? But we were in Germany together as kids, and our both of our mothers were singers, and stepfather was a musician, all that kind of stuff. And we remained cool all these years. But my man Kai Phoenix, welcome to the show, sir.
Microphone check 1 2. What is it? Not just like the stage for the record. I was a kid. You were sort of a kid, but you had the face of a.
What you say? I'm sorry.
I said I was a kid. You had the face of a grown man at a very young age.
See, I knew you was gonna come with that. See,
we were never really sure exactly what your age was. We just
like
figured
LeBron.
you were a pick-me.
you said I had LeBron and what was my other man?
Oh, Greg Odom.
Greg Odom. That's what you telling me?
You were Odom.
Now, Kai, he be talking that noise. When he got older, he started to look like Tupac, and girls was loving him and stuff like that.
Let me tell you something. It was a great time at my height. I'm telling you right now.
You know what I'm saying? But when we was kids, he was Kermity a little bit. He looked like, Kermit the Frog here.
That's fair, but look, I had window peaks at 14 years old, and it was a bad time. And when I shaved my head, I got a different sort of love, and I was like, I deserve this.
Hey, man, I give it to you, man. I was like, this dude done got like super handsome and everything on me. God, dog.
I put in work. I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and
But nah, man.
started shaping my mustache.
Yep. But nah, man, I appreciate it, man. Me and this dude again, we've been I looked to this guy and again, giving my man, as my the late great Bishop Holcomb said, I'm gonna give you your chicken while you can eat it. You know what I'm saying? This dude, it's crazy that we've talked before offline, and while in many ways me and this dude have opposing views on certain things, we came from the same roots in many ways. And I always look to this dude for how thoughtful you are about things, and how you do have that contrarian vibe, but it's always from a point of trying to understand and to educate. So let's get to I wanted to talk just briefly, Kai, kind of what was we talk about starting in Germany, but kind of tell the people kind of what was your family dynamic coming up? Why did you end up in Germany, and kind of some of those early points of your life?
My parents got divorced when I was 7, and my mother got custody of me. Maybe about I'd say about 2 years later, she remarried, and he was Air Force 2, my stepfather, and he got orders to go over to Germany, and that's how I ended there in 1993.
Okay.
And then you came along, and life just got really bad after that.
So, guys, full circle of the story. We came to Germany. I guess we were in a different area, but the church that we were affiliated with here in Texas, my youth pastor or youth minister at the time, a great man, Pastor McMillan. He at that time he's a minister, but they sent him to Germany, and he had a church in Germany called Victory. And
oh man, I did not know that. Excuse me.
Yeah, so I had known Pastor McMillan since they had the different classes at Christian House of Prayer, and when I went to the 10 through 12 class, he was the main primary minister that dealt with us. So I had been hearing his brand of ministering for a long time. And as a youth, I just looked up to him a lot because he was always very honest um, about what it was like to be getting ready to go into teenager, and he would tell us real stories about, about sex and about drugs and about, just all this stuff with it. But, you didn't hear that in church a lot, that people were honest about that stuff like that. So
Extremely, extremely influential.
yeah.
I looked up to him, and we looked out. We got him,
Mm-hmm.
and we got Tracy,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
and the two of them. You looked up, and you're like, okay, that's. I have my stepfather there, but it's a weird dynamics coming from my father. Those are hard shoes to follow,
Right.
and we looked at as those two as examples of manhood.
Right. For sure. Most definitely.
So
I tell
he was
cats
a tender dude.
to this day, I remember, and it stuck with me when I got married, that one time he was preaching and he was talking about, he was talking about sex. And he was telling the men something to the effect of, when you see your wife get out of the shower and she walk by, every time you see her, you can't be thinking to yourself, ride 'em cowboy. You like, you got to let that chick make it sometime. You can't be trying to smash every time. I was like, man, okay. So I held that, that was one of the things I held with me. Like, okay, some nights I got to let this chick make it. So
He the great thing about him is that I owe a lot of the way I express myself to him because he always gave people an open floor. Him and Tracy,
hmm
when we were in our little teen thing, it was always an open group. It was always an open floor
right.
to express yourself. It's not me talking down to you. Remember, he used to have those teen nights
Yep.
where he would have the teens face their parents,
Yep.
and you could speak freely, and that it influences the way you express yourself now. You have no problem talking to somebody
Yep.
because that's sort of how I was raised to raise my voice.
Right, for sure. I still have on VHS when you rapped when we did Jesus is the Reason. I got that on VH
Wow.
still. I don't need
When I
material
done
things.
bandanas.
I still have that. I still have that. I watch it every once in a while. But now one thing I always thought that was key that you could speak to too, Kai, is although you were in Germany and separate from your pops, one thing again, just admiring, I always look at is that I never met your dad, but he's like a stand up dude, and y'all have this great relationship still. What did he do, and how did y'all maintain that bond and that relationship, even though you were away from him?
Well, I would say it's twofold, right? So in the first fold, he was a superhero to me.
Mm-hmm.
He's an extreme presence. He loved his kids. He always had them with him. Always, brought us. But two things that my father did was he always hit us with what is it, introspection and Afrocentrism.
Mm-hmm.
He pushed it on us. We had to memorize our civil rights leaders as kids and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, we knew a lot. I remember he would go over it with us. I'd be 8 or 9 years old. Who was Marcus Garvey? What did he do? That sort of stuff.
Wow. Okay.
And then also, he gave us choice early, always choice.
Mm-hmm.
He never, if we went to the store, he never picked anything out for you. He always gave you choice. Your opinion always mattered.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always in charge, but your opinion always mattered. So you felt a certain amount of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side, because of the divorce, as a result, my mother getting custody, my mother was more of a strong arm. You remember, she scared everybody.
Yes, sir.
You sort of, at a young age, I sort of blamed the separation on her.
Ah, okay.
And therefore, in my eyes, he grows bigger and bigger and bigger. You know what I'm saying?
Now, how did your perception of that change as you grew up?
Well, you get older, you become an adult. You've gone through relationships yourself. So now you understand ups and downs. You understand cheating. You understand everything that they went through because they were just people that were just young.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to see the whole story.
Right.
And when you see the whole story, and me and my mom were probably on odds
Mm-hmm.
until I was 31 years old.
Wow.
And when we finally sat down and we had a conversation and things got better from there, We grew a special relationship on how we express ourselves. We tell everything, everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird relationship, but the things that she had told me had began to be pieces of a puzzle that connected, like my memories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you get to see a truer picture of who the human of your father is,
Right.
and it kind of changes things.
Yeah, that's dope, man. That's and I never would have thought that. Again, I saw, and again, this is it's just funny how even from afar people have influence. And I was looking at things with your dad, you know, even when y'all would be in the garage boxing, you know, as adults. I'm like, I know that was stuff that he was putting in you early. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
And
oh yeah.
so it's just the whole thing of he understood, and kind of what me and Skeens talk about is that legacy that he laid in you as your siblings and things like that, from even from the simplest thing of how to throw hands to who you are as a black man. You know what I mean? So salute to your pops, man. Now how long you been married now?
We're looking at 8 years.
8 years.
8 years married.
Yeah.
11 total.
So
Being
we
together.
got married close to the. Well, wait a minute. We getting ready to hit. No, we hit 8 this year. So y'all was a year after us then. Okay. So y'all got married. You got baby boy now, and what has, if you could give us anything, from what marriage has taught you and fatherhood.
Um, okay. What fatherhood taught me was I was a smart coward.
Wow. Okay.
I was a smart coward,
How so?
meaning I was definitely afraid of becoming a father in my 20s. Want nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been good with kids, always been around kids, but I didn't, the responsibility, there was nothing scarier to me than getting a call and somebody saying, I'm late.
Right.
I
Right.
would rather, I have been shot at outside of a club.
Right.
That was less scarier. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
always feared becoming a father, um, even though I didn't think that I would be bad at it. I just didn't want it for my 20s, and I avoided it like the Black Plague.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally had a child in my 30s, I realized that, I can't believe that I was such a coward, but I was glad that I was, because having a child in your 30s, you're just more mature. You got more patience. You
Yep.
lived more. You're in a better financial state.
Yep.
It was a good choice, but it wasn't a choice based coming from a place of intellect. It was coming from a place of cowardice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can again, similarity, man. I remember with my wife, me and my friend were headed to a work picnic, and she's like, we're in this back road going to the lake, and I can't, the texts are coming in slow, but essentially these texts are coming in, and she's like, I'm afraid, or something happened. I'm like, what is it? And then it's like, I'm late, or I think I'm pregnant. I am pregnant. Then a picture of a pregnancy test. And like you said, because of how we're wired to fear that, I was married, but Kai, my heart was about to beat out of my chest. Like, I got this chick pregnant. What am I gonna do? I was like, oh my God. And so my homeboy, he's like, what's up, man? And I was like, man, this chick says she pregnant. He goes, ah. And I'm like, and in that moment, it took me, it felt like a long time, but it was a few seconds. Like, Jay, you're married now. You like you said, you at this stable place. It's cool. And then even when we found out that we were pregnant with number 2, I went through this whole thing because I thought Trey's about to be 7 years old. I'm thinking we done, and now I'm like, I got to go through this process again. And as a joke, and we're guys that kind of process how we feel a lot. And I'm like, I'm like going through the stages of grief. You know what I'm saying? And I was talking to a friend of mine and his wife about it, and she's like, that's the thing when you're an unexpected parent, because they were unexpected parents. The wife was on birth control, same thing, all that kind of stuff. So, but I agree, man, being in your 30s, you've lived life, you're stable, you're much more mature. I'm 31 years older than Trey, and I'm 37 years yeah, 38 years old, 37 years older than Jason. So that's
But that,
definitely
that's the modern trend now. I think that the modern model is set yourself up rather than just, you were taught to, you're supposed to have kids in your 20s or whatever
right.
because that's the optimal time in your youth. But I think more and more people are having children in their early 30s.
Yeah, agreed. Now y'all getting ready to be married 8, together 11.
Right.
Tell me about that process, just a little bit, kind of y'all trek to marriage and some of that stuff.
Um, we were together. I never was a relationship guy. So whenever I met somebody, I knew right away.
Mm-hmm.
I knew right away. And that was her. She
Mm-hmm.
was working, she was a bagger in a grocery store, and I was working at juvenile detention.
Right, I remember that.
Um,
Okay.
and me and my best friend, we both worked there, and we were roommates. And we didn't like grocery shopping during the daytime, so we would grocery shop after we got at work at nighttime. And so
Right.
we would always see her. We'd
Yep.
go and flirt. But as soon as I saw her, I was like, "Oh, that's girlfriend right there."
Okay.
I could tell she got it all.
Okay.
We got together. It was okay. It was really good in the beginning. Our personalities match.
Mm-hmm.
Not really hard. I'm not a hard person to get along with in a relationship if you can get me in a relationship.
Okay.
But we both needed our space, so that's cool for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we just were agreeable. It worked.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have issues in other places, and because I was single so long, I was wired to whenever something goes wrong in a certain area, that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I broke off all of my relationships usually for the same thing.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know what I'm
Right.
saying? Or I was cheating.
Mm-hmm.
And so we broke up in about year 3.
Oh, okay.
And when we got back together, well, we had become good friends again, and I guess we were working towards getting back together, but nobody wanted to say it.
Okay.
So I was just sort of waiting on, are we getting back together? Like, are we gonna make this official? And she called me out of nowhere and was like, I think we should get married. I never in my life ever pictured myself getting married, and
Right.
nobody else pictured that for me.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I don't really play like that. And she was like, no, I'm serious. And I was like, okay. So I just wanted a second chance.
Right.
And I joined the military, and it just, sort of worked out.
Wow.
What
Wow.
marriage taught me is you've got to keep in the back of your head what it is at all times, like the reason you got together and
Mm-hmm.
why do you love this person.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's just realizing the value of this person.
Mm-hmm.
This person just plain out makes me better from the beginning. From the beginning, she was the first woman I looked at her. I looked at her accomplishments and what she was doing in her life, and I was like, dude, if I want to be with this person, I gotta get my stuff together.
Right. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's how I always thought about it. She just brings out the best in you, raises your value at all times. So
Right.
whatever you're going through, man, you just got to work through that.
Right. Got to embrace the work part of it. That's one of my tenets, if you will. Now, where we at? About 18 minutes. So yeah, we're gonna get into the topic here, but just wanted to do a brief overview with Kai, y'all, because I again give this dude his chicken while he one of the dopest cats that I personally know. Now let's take me down the road. This guy, y'all, is one of the most voracious readers and writers that I have ever met in my life. I mean, he reads and writes at a clip that's, I don't know, man. It's like it's unhuman. You best about making up words, but now what was it that fed your hunger to read and gain knowledge like that, and then to also become an author?
Okay. As far as reading goes, I always had a love for reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
From a young age, I always had a love for reading.
Right.
And then you get to about the beginnings of 20s, and we're from the hip hop generation,
Yes, sir.
and my focus shifts, and I
Mhm.
stop reading, and I get involved in hip hop and whatnot.
Right.
Um,
Put out some music.
of course, I
Yeah.
I did my thing for a little while.
Yep.
And,
Mm-hmm.
You get to maybe about 26, 27. Now, the whole time you're going through life, you're noticing certain things about yourself and about the world, like a glitch in a matrix. Something doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
About 26, 27, when I stopped rapping, I wanted to rededicate myself to reading. And as I began to read more, I began to question myself more on my thought process. And I realized I was pretty much, or the way I've been taught, the things that I've been taught, the way I've been taught, and the things that I personally believe, in my personal opinion, all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two ways you can go. You can double down, or you could unlearn and relearn.
Okay.
And I've always been sort of the changing kind, so that's what I dedicated myself to.
Mm-hmm.
Unlearn and relearn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the beginning of my journey that took me in every aspect of my life, how to deal with relationships, my spiritual walk,
Mm-hmm.
all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I started working in juvenile detentions. I started working in shelters for abused and abandoned and runaway youth. All that combined, it's incubating.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I joined the military, I meet my best friend and writing partner in basic training,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a poet. And I used to see him off to himself and writing all the time, and I recognized that. And once we started sharing writing and stuff like that, I'd been incubating stuff for almost a decade by that point,
Right.
and I had a lot to say. Once I got out the military, I started writing more often. I was doing poetry all through my tenure in the military,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't think anything of it. It was you guys, as a matter of fact. It was you guys. I would write stuff and put it on social media.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
you guys that were like, hey, you probably should write a book. I never thought about writing anything. I
Okay.
just wrote. I just wanted to express myself.
Right.
And once I got the bug of that, you come back. I get out the military. I come back to Texas. I start working in a job that I'm currently at that I'll be quitting in October.
Okay.
And I'm miserable
Okay.
because I know that this is not what my life is.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in the military, I started having these panic attacks, right?
Word.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It started, Muhammad Ali is like my idol, right?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
When he passed, of course it hurt. But then I watched his funeral for 2 days, stayed up watching, cried for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at his funeral and you look at the way he was reverenced. And then I started thinking more about death.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want this to be too morbid, but there's a point to it.
No, keep going.
Out of nowhere, like you would think about it like people normally think about it, but this was different. Like I was thinking about it and then I was really thinking about it. And I remember distinctly the first panic attack I had. I was with a friend of mine and we would go to PT and then we'd go to Waffle House before we went, to our station. And I had this panic attack in a car and he didn't notice. And after that, I was like, whoa, what is that? And I had many more after that.
What did it feel like when you take? What did it feel like when you had it? Did you know what it was, or what were you thinking at the
No.
time?
It's funny. Look, man, I'm a black dude from a good hood. We don't go through that.
Right.
In my opinion, panic attacks were for white people who didn't really go through nothing.
Mm-hmm.
In my personal opinion,
Right.
I didn't know that it was available to me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it starts off with the thought of, wow, like one day it's going to be over forever.
Right. Uh-huh.
Like it's not fair. It's not fair. And I just concentrated on that. It's not fair. And the deeper and deeper I started feeling a sinking feeling in the middle of my chest. Eyes start watering up, but then you start feeling dizzy. It's a crazy feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You get lost in it, and then like out of nowhere, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what was that?
Right.
And from that point on, I see life like I'm 65 years old looking backwards.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see like right now.
Okay.
I see it like the future every day. And I'm like, okay, I need to chronicle my life.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that I can is it's not death that I'm afraid of. It's not being remembered.
Ah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
A meaningless life. And for me, I want to be remembered. And what I thought was, I remember my grandfather. I never got to meet him.
Mm-hmm.
He died in 1974, but he was an eccentric personality, right? Oh, I'm sorry for taking up all your time too. My
No, no,
bad.
no, no, boy. This is nah. Keep going.
He was an eccentric personality. He had this thing where he would doodle and draw. He was obsessed with word and text. He would scour through magazines and newspapers, and he would draw the calligraphy and little sketches and stuff, random words in different fonts. It's amazing to see how a person's minds work.
Mm-hmm.
When he passed, my father found these papers and he put this in this big frame, all these random pieces. When I was a kid, I just stare at those doodles, trying to figure out how this man's mind worked.
Mm-hmm.
And just that, I felt connected to him.
Wow.
I felt like I understood him. And for me, that's the model, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't want my kids, my grandkids to describe who I was. I can do that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you open up a book that I write, you're looking at my mind frame. And in that, I live forever.
Right.
These are my views and my opinions. And you know me not just as dad or grandfather. This was Kai Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to describe me. I can describe myself and how I felt. And I can communicate with you. If I'm talking to you when I started writing at 34, and if my son reads it at 24, he's basically having a conversation with me at a relatively young age when I wrote it at a
Right.
relatively young age. Because me, if I make it to 66, it's not going to be the same person.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But me right now is who I truly am. Right now, my logic and my fire is right now.
Mm-hmm.
At 66, I will have mellowed and I would have got more wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
But this right here is me right now in my truest essence.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, like it said in that beautiful play, Hamilton, you got to write like you're running out of time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's it.
So I worked in this factory, miserable. I hate this place.
Right.
You know, it's breaking my body down.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no time to think or use your phone or write. But I have these 3x5 cards.
I was going
I
to
wrote,
ask you to bring that up. This dude carries these 3x5 note cards
at all times,
at all times.
no matter where I go, movies, bathroom, work, wherever. I carry a 3x5 because I've conditioned myself to where if I have a random thought, something that makes me feel a certain way, I got to write it down or I'll forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I'll do something with it later on. But in 7 months, I wrote 2.5 books, and it just compiled from there. I wrote a curriculum for college. I wrote 2 screenplays.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2 books right now, a poetry book with my writing partner, a book of essays and conversations about brotherhood with my writing partner, another poetry book. All of this, 30 seconds at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And in October, I'm quitting my job and focusing on all this. I'm also doing school. Mm-hmm. I'm quitting my job. I'm going to focus on school and writing. Mm-hmm. If I can do all of that in just, 30 seconds at a time in relatively 3 years, imagine what I'm going to do if I don't have to do that.
Indeed. Because we had a conversation a while ago about there was another work that you had that you sent me, but that was kind of like
my first novel.
Yeah.
The Revolutionary, yeah.
Yes. And I mean, it was a beautiful work. And this guy, because one thing that I always appreciated, and it's funny how, as Kai said, we kind of came up a certain way that was very similar. Then Kai had his own awakening of his own. And even though we have these opposing views, we still have some components of some bare bone things that how we are as men, as fathers, as husbands. And as creators, I always looked up to this guy because of me and Skeens always have, he's my sounding board that I can discuss all these creative and as a, people throw that term creative around, but literally sometimes as a creative person, your brain is just ran with ideas all day long.
Can't sleep. Can't sleep.
It's and people like, why can't you sleep? And me and Skeens Kai, I can text him at 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning or what, and he's up because his brain is going. It's just, hey, I thought about this. Hey, did you see this? Did you see that? Hey, did you see this conversation? Let's talk about that. You know what I'm saying? So I take my hat off to you and I take notes from you as far as I'm getting better at putting those, when you have those ideas, putting it down somewhere. Sometimes I'm even, I start doing like little voice notes to myself to kind of remember stuff like that, because it's like your brain is just ran over. And when you feel like you're in a job that is not necessarily your purpose, like you say, you don't have the space sometimes to even do that. You know what I mean? I can remember maybe 2 years ago, I think it was, and I told myself, I said, man, I'm going to take some time off of work and just chill at the crib, but just kind of get some of these ideas and stuff down. It was a little bit further. It was longer ago than that. It was because of before we like launched our little shirt line for a second and stuff. But in those few days that I was just at home, focused on the ideas, I came up with several ideas. We finally launched our shirt. All these little things I was able to do just by the mere fact that I was able to focus my energy on that and not kind of, for lack of a better term, waste it at my 8 to 5. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely
and at the end of the day, that's all it really is.
Yep.
Can you imagine working until you're about maybe 50 or 60?
Yep.
And then you retire, and then you're gone about 60 or 70.
Yep.
You spent the entirety of your life. Nah, man. No.
Yeah.
No.
Indeed. True indeed. So yeah, man, I salute you. I didn't know. I remember, again, another thing. I remember you had like a post where you have like a board back behind you with all your stuff that you're working on. Am I correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, this dude has, for what and again, I ain't never been to Kai's house, but he has like a dedicated space in his house where he is in there creating.
It's my study, the Pantheon.
Yeah, and it's all blacked out, because he be on this Black Panther vibe. You know what I'm saying? So,
oh yeah.
So yeah, and it's just anything, just for y'all that's listening, man. When you know that there's something within you that God has put in you to do, what Kai is talking about, what me and Skeens often talk about, is actually putting that time towards that thing. Because before you know it, life will gobble you up, and then it's gone. And you're sitting there like, what did I do with it? And a part of what Kai is also talking about, leaving those things for his children and his grandchildren, it's legacy. It's what we talk about. What is the legacy that we're leaving? And Kai, I had some of those same thoughts. It was a guy, my auxiliary leader from the ministry I'm in at church, he passed. Right. And after that, I call her my little sister, but our families are close. She passed. She was only 27 years old. And then after that, my bishop passed. He wasn't, I think he was 68, something like that. I might be getting his age wrong, but he wasn't even 70 years old when he passed. And those people, like, back to back to back like that, it just had my brain like looking at life a whole different way. You know what I mean? And I can remember, I have a close friend of mine, Sion. He was like a big brother to me, mentored me with finances and just as a husband and stuff. And when I found, my aunt called me and told me that that Michelle had passed, because me and my wife were supposed, she was in the hospital. She had lupus, and we had went and saw her on Sunday, because she would be in the hospital from time to time, and we'd always joke she'd get out. But kind of her condition had changed literally like overnight. So from like Saturday to Sunday, she had been in the hospital for a few days, and then from Saturday to Sunday, kind of things changed. And went up there on Sunday, and she's literally like on life support. You know what I mean? Right. So anyway, me and my wife were supposed to go back the next day. They were going to do a procedure, and so after we would get off work, we were going to go. And right before an hour or so before I'm supposed to get off, her mom calls me, and she calls me Jalen. She said, "Hey, Jalen." I said, "Hey, Auntie, how you doing? What's going on?" I said, "How are you doing?" She said, "Not good. Michelle just passed away." But she was so calm. Michelle just passed. And I'm just sitting there like, what? And then she's like, yeah. She said, well, I need you to call your mom because your mom is having, then that time my dad is texting me. And then I'm calling my father-in-law. We're going to be late to pick up Trey. And he's like, oh, you know. And so I called Sion, or Sion called me. I can't remember. And I was literally doubled over on my bed, just thanking him for the things that he put in me and thanking him for making me think about legacy and family a different way. You know what I mean? And I was in tears, and he was consoling me and everything. But, that's what it's all about, is the footprints that we leave for those behind us to follow. You know what I mean?
It's you're not guaranteed to leave them in a stable condition financially. Let's be real about it.
Yep.
We're going to do our best. We're going to learn about investing. We're going to learn about land and equity and try to implement that throughout the course of our lives.
Yep.
And try to leave them some sort of monetary wealth. But you're not promised to that. Like our great grandparents weren't promised. Like my aunts and my grandparents weren't,
Yep.
You're not promised, but that's not your only legacy. There's different things that you could do to pass on that actually mean something. Can you imagine, man? Just imagine, if I'm being forward thinking, imagine getting something like papers from your great great grandfather.
Right.
And he was writing you.
Right.
I will never get to meet you. I'll never get to see you. But I just wanted you to know that I imagined you. I imagined who you were and how you would be. And I just want you to know that I love you.
Man, yeah. Yeah.
That forward thinking for your great grandkids and maybe beyond, that gets passed on throughout your family. That's a family heirloom right there. Not to mention, what does that do for them? Even long, long ago, somebody was thinking about you, imagining you. It shows you that, it gives you something to want to live up to. Purpose. They imagined you being great. It's hard to be suicidal when people think that you're going to be great. When they imagine it for yourself before, when you know that somebody beyond time loved you. That's legacy.
Yes, sir. Yep, that's what it's all.
You can do that by writing it and doing whatever it is that your talent is. You can leave that. You're not promised to leave them money,
right,
or house or land. You know what I'm saying? But I think that our job is very simple. Our mission as humans is to make it better than what we got it, and to pass down information so they could do it. That's it.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Pass down the information in whichever art that you do, however you do it.
Yeah, for sure, man. Because I'm sitting here with Skeens now. Again, our grandfather, he was passed on before we came. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then my dad's dad never met him. Skeen knew grandma more than me because he was there. We were in Italy, and she, got sick and passed away. And I didn't see her since I was a baby. And the only grandparent that I had a real relationship with was my dad's mom. You know what I mean? And I haven't even, on my mom's side or my dad, I haven't even seen a picture of what he looks like, because I have that thing in me where and they're like, oh, Jay, he's dark skinned like you and, short kind of style. I'm like, really? But I never seen this man before. But like you said, it's a part of the legacy, man. It's so true, man. It's just, how did you think? How did you deal with certain things? How did you move? And with that kind of stuff like that, and I think, and that's a whole nother deeper conversation for Black Americans, is that in many ways we didn't have that because of, how our ancestors were treated. Some of those things weren't there. I liken it to how you talk, sometimes you can go up and ask them, oh, I'm Irish, Scottish, and my grandfather was from here. And and you ask sometimes black folk, you like, yeah, I don't know my lineage like that. I don't know.
So you got to start it.
Yeah, exactly.
It starts with you.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. So, but that's dope, man. Now, just to switch gears real quick, man, and Kai, I wanted to ask you one last thing. And we were going to talk about a topic, man, but this conversation is just taking such a dope turn.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
So don't even trip on that, bro. It doesn't even matter. So I wanted to take one step back, and because one of the things that I'm very passionate about is our, youth. And, a lot of what I do at church, it is dealing with young men and things like that. And, it's always great when you see them kind of evolving and making those changes. One of my kids I hadn't seen in a while because of COVID, he called me from something. I answered the phone. And I'm like, hey, what's up? You know this? I'm like, no. And then he says who he is, and we have this whole conversation. He recently got into, a little thing. And it's just cool when they trust you to call you and, and things like that. But Kai, when you were working with the youth in the detention center and stuff, can you tell us kind of about that and what your experience was like there?
Oh yeah. It's two different experiences. Juvenile detention, I absolutely loved it.
Okay.
I felt like it was my calling. I work with gang youth.
Oh, okay.
Bounty Hunter Blood, Hoover Crips, Oreños, Norteños, you name it.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that, these are big kids. They're big, they're tatted, they have more kids than you.
Right.
But they're kids.
Right. Yep, that's it.
And when I first went in, I'm the smallest guy in detention, so you go in there on some tough guy stuff.
Right.
And then slowly and surely you learn, there's nothing easier to control than a gangster teenager.
Okay.
It's easy.
How so?
It's all mental.
Okay.
It's all in how you present yourself. So I walk into, say, a mod full of 12 Hoovers.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in there is the influence.
Okay.
I'm going to find them. I'm either going to put them in my pocket. And what I mean by putting them in my pocket is he's the influence. He's the leader.
Mm-hmm.
I'll establish with him that he realized that I'm actually the leader, but you're under me. And I'll let you continue to lead.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I put him in my pocket. If he gets on good terms with me, he maintains his position and influence. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's less work for me to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, indeed.
Everybody within my mod knows my rules and how I want things to happen. And I leave it to him to enforce it if he does it the right way.
Okay, got it.
Once you're around them long enough, they learn you. They learn your mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that all I have to do is a certain look, and they knew exactly what that meant. We line up to go do something. Hey guys, y'all know me. Don't talk in my line.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's going to happen if you talk in my line.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We go walking. We go past the girls. Somebody has something to say.
Okay.
I turn back. I give them a certain look. They know, man, when we get back to the mod, I'm just going to say, man, it smells in here. I think I'm going to clean all day.
Oh, wow.
Don't even worry about it. Y'all can stay in your cells,
Right.
and I'll just clean all day.
Right.
They hate being in their cells.
Right.
So you can just see all their spirits dropped just from a look, because I know they know me.
Yeah.
Once I put him in my pocket, if I get a new person that comes in and, it's juvie, so they want to come in tough,
Mm-hmm.
I'll look at him and he'll go right to that kid.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this is how it's going to go down while you're in here. I don't got to say nothing.
Right.
He's in my pocket.
Okay.
If he's not smart and he wants to oppose me, we play a game called Who Can Kick Who Out.
Mm-hmm.
I kick you out as my mod now.
Right.
When you come back, you know that. Other than that, what kids respect, surprisingly, is vulnerability.
Okay.
It's funny how we grew up to project the image of strength and power when we had none.
Right. Right.
What constitutes a real nigga?
Yep.
Don't be too friendly. Watch how you smiling.
Yep.
Show no weakness. You understand what I'm saying?
Indeed.
Now you look who we thought were the hardest people in the world. Tupac, DMX,
Yep.
50, the most vulnerable people in the world. The most vulnerable rappers ever. Tupac was basically talking to God and his mama his whole career.
Yep.
DMX was always crying when he's praying.
Yep.
50 Cent was about the most famous victim you're going to see. but he didn't mind talking about it. They respect
Right.
vulnerability. I could act tough, but when I showed them where I lost in life, they respected me more.
Mm-hmm.
And
Indeed.
so honesty and vulnerability makes you real.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to you because you lost and I lost too.
Mm-hmm.
And because you lost, you can't judge me.
Mm-hmm.
You can only understand me.
Yeah.
And
Indeed.
that's what they respect. I had the most amount of respect there is because I never judged anybody. I always listened to them. And I told them when I failed, when I lost, how I feel. And they look at you like, I don't know you if you're allowed to do that. You don't look like you should be doing that. But
Right.
they respected you because they think that he's giving this to me and he's not supposed to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I can agree with that. One thing that I found that has worked for me in is a consistency.
Yep.
Because they want to see if okay
Follow
this
through.
this follow through. Are you really like this?
Yep.
Is Brother Jay gonna come and talk to me? Yeah, I'm gonna come and talk to you every week. Yep. Oh, you got a game? Okay. Where's your game at? And one of my kids, he's to see me in the stands with my wife and my son. He's looking at me like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. He really means what he's saying. And
Yep.
like you said, one way that I would get, especially in my environment at church, and they're looking at me as an older married man, like a minister. When I tell them, "Oh, I've been through that," oh,
Yep. I was about to say I think a lot of times the best preachers are the most relatable.
well, yeah,
And when they have real stories.
that
They've
was
been through
one of the
something.
things that, again, with Bishop Holcomb is that he went on to be, one of the, in this area or even across the country and internationally, a humongous preacher. But one of the things he always showed to us was his vulnerability. And as
You
a
know what's
man,
funny?
that's what I looked at.
You know what's funny? My first poetry book that I'm going to publish next year. My intro involves Bishop Holcomb
Wow. I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah.
because I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you were there. One of my most important memories of Germany was Bishop Holcomb came over
Mm-hmm.
and he was preaching, and I was sitting in the middle of the right congregation, like dead in the middle, buried by adults.
Okay.
And he was walking up the aisle and he was talking. He looked at me and I looked at him. We made eye contact and he kept going and then he stopped. And he turned back and he was like, "You." And I'm just looking like, all right, who is he talking? Can't be talking to me. I'm a little kid
Yeah.
surrounded by adults. And when everybody started looking back at me, I was like, oh, he's talking about me.
Yeah.
He's like, "You, I see the spirit and anointing on you.
Uh-huh.
Come up here. I need that spirit." And I was like, nah, this ain't happening. This ain't happening to me. When mom looked back at me, I was like, the
Yep.
curse words that are going through my head at this point. And he made me come up there and he made me put my hand on his back
Mm.
and never take my hand off his back to break the connection.
Wow. I
And
didn't
then
know
he
that.
did, yeah, then he did an altar call and everybody was falling out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, in that moment, I thought then, as I think now, what a great show.
Mm-hmm.
But also, he made me feel important.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked to me afterwards, and he was talking to me that he saw it in me that I had a ministry,
Mm-hmm.
and he put that in me that I would have something important to say subconsciously.
Wow. Yeah, indeed.
I was embarrassed, but I liked the idea of having something important to say,
Mm-hmm.
and it started with him.
Wow, I didn't know that, man.
But you're right. It's the balance of what I say I'm going to do disciplinarian wise.
Yep.
If I tell you I'm gonna do it, it's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
But also, there's nobody you should come to but me because I'm gonna tell you straight, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you at all time.
Yep.
That balance right there
Mm-hmm.
worked. But then I go to the shelters.
Uh-huh.
That's a horse of a different color.
Okay. How so?
These are not hardened, you know, These are not people that's done drive-bys before.
Mm-hmm.
These are victims, majority female.
Okay.
And then I have little kids come in 7, 10, 9 who have gone through the most extreme abuses. Jay, I can tell you some stories. Bro.
Right. Got you. Yeah.
I remember one particular girl. I thought when I did my 4 years in the Army, I thought about her every day of all 4.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew she was done for a long time.
Yeah.
She's going to be messed up for a long time. How you handle them is a completely different story. And I found that it was too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you take home.
Right. Got you.
Juvenile, I can shut off. I couldn't shut this off.
Right. Yeah.
That ultimately led to me joining the military. And I was doing 16-hour shifts.
Whoa.
In a shelter where I run, and you just have their whole day. Like, I've got kids from 5 to 19,
Mm-hmm.
all with their own problems. You got to keep some separated, and it's all on you. This is your house. You're literally daddy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're daddy to them. You take them to their appointments. You run the house. You do their schoolwork. These are all my kids.
Wow. Now, see, I remembered that you had changed from doing the juvenile detention, but I never knew or understood what you transitioned into after that. So, wow, that's amazing, man. I didn't know that.
It is rough. You ain't gonna get paid. It is a job for the heart.
Yeah.
And if you only knew how many of these shelters are throughout cities all over, social workers, they're saints.
Mm-hmm.
They're saints. What they got to put up with, what they got to do.
Yeah.
So it's just 2 completely different worlds, and it molds and shapes you. Now that is what made me into what I would be as a father.
Ah, got you. Yeah, you got a whole lot of training there.
That's you get a whole lot of training there.
Yeah.
You know, I looked up to you as far as marriage and fatherhoods from a distance.
Man, I appreciate that.
I watched you. I don't think I've ever seen anybody so, we go through our ups and downs, but so happy
Mm-hmm.
to be married. And I want everybody to know it.
Yeah.
It's influential, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
God, for real, man. Seriously. Yeah.
As a parent, you glow.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of parents glow.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of men excited to be married.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to be married.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Excited is a different adjective.
Indeed. Yeah. For real.
But then you look at the way that you value your wife, or the way you were when I was watching you,
Mm-hmm.
and it just makes you reevaluate yourself as a man.
Yeah. Real talk, man. And you just never know, man. And 2 things is just, again, I would just encourage men out there. Me and Skeens always talk about, and Kai was, again, it's always just amazing to me, and it's a blessing to me to see that I have, when I tell people that I have brothers literally all across the place that I can count on that are solid men. Kai is one of those guys. And a part of who we are as men, I feel, is like Kai is saying, our job is to pass on information. You know what I mean? Our job is to be accountable and to uphold ourselves in these families. And a part of that, I was thinking about how, as we were talking about consistency with young men, you have every man. In another Bishop Holcomb, we were at a men's conference, and he was talking about every man in there, and it was hundreds of men. He was saying every man in there had influence over so many. And he was using an example, maybe because I'm a bishop and I've been a pastor, my influence is thousands, but God is looking at it no different. Your influence is meant to be over just a few, but you need to use that influence for positivity and for good. And you just never know when those seeds that you plant, when they'll produce fruit. One of my things, one of my joys in life is helping people. Helping people figure things out. Jay, let me call you. Let me text you. What you think about that? And I would just run. Sometimes I would try to carry that ball with them to the end zone. And one of my mentors, my big brother Eric Young, was like, dude, you supposed to just give him what you're supposed to give him, and then, let it happen from there. And one of my kids, I used to talk to him all the time. Kai, he was short, light skinned, he had light eyes, but he was trying to be a thug. And I was like, dude, you'll be fooled out here somewhere, man. Stop it. Stop.
Right.
Stop it. And, we would, every week, we would get together, and sometimes I would hang out with him, and, these kind of things like that. And it wasn't until he was in the military, married, and I think had like his first kid on the way, he messaged me out of nowhere and was like, dude, I just want to thank you for what you kept me out of. Some of the dudes that I was trying to run around with are either dead or in jail. You know what I mean? But it just came to fruition later. So I just encourage the men, don't worry so much about, again, like I was at one point, trying to take it all the way to the end zone sometimes. But you have some influence that you can pass on.
I tell you this, and this is something that I never told you before.
Okay.
I think your ultimate gift that you gave me, right? Mm-hmm. We have different spiritual journeys.
Yes, sir.
We disagree on a lot.
Yes.
Right. And when I got to the point of figuring out what I am right now, the word iconoclast appeals to me. Mm-hmm. Iconoclast is the breaker of ideas.
Okay.
Why? Find out why. Or just ask why, right? When I parted from my former religion, I was angry. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And I snap at everything. You want to prove everybody wrong. And you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You lash out a lot.
Yeah.
And part of that anger is, part of the community that you were raised in, especially being blacks. When you no longer believe as the group believes, well, they don't really want too much to do with you.
They ain't rocking with you, nah.
Because your question, it's nobody wants to be around that. You're questioning the path. You're questioning what they've been taught. Nobody wants to deal with that. I've got two people in my life, honestly. Mm-hmm. There's you and another friend of mine, both strong in their faith.
Yeah.
And I can question all I want. It ain't going to shake your faith.
Right.
But more importantly, you didn't throw me away.
Ah, indeed.
You understand what I'm saying?
Most definitely.
I could be free to have my angst that I had at the time or feel differently about things. And he's like, okay, I understand. Mm-hmm. You never threw me away. You never missed a beat.
Yeah, indeed.
That's important, because it makes you the exception of the rule. So I cannot generalize this walk, this faith.
Yeah, indeed. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think
it's you being an example.
I appreciate that. And Kai, I think one of the things that me and Skeens always talk about, especially in this, social media age with disagreement and stuff like that. And again, me and Skeens always say we have the United Nations of friends. We got friends from all different walks, creeds, colors, orientations, whatever. But as men, as I believe men should be great communicators, that also means that I don't just rock with you or communicate with you if we line up on everything.
Right.
Me and Kai don't line up on a whole bunch of things, but again, I still consider him a brother and somebody that, he can hop on the phone and call me at 2 and 3 in the morning. I'll drive down to SA for you. You know what I'm saying? So
how much can you grow though from everybody agreeing with you?
The same thing.
Yep. You can't.
How can you grow?
Yep.
You need those opinions, and it keeps everybody on their toes.
Absolutely.
Opposites opinions helps you to remember that you're not right, because you walk around through life thinking that how I think and how I believe is the right way. So you meet somebody who goes, not actually. And then you're like, oh, you're right.
Right.
You're right. This changes things for me.
I had a friend that called me last Saturday, and we're cool, work friend, and he's from Arkansas too, older than me, but he was having a discussion with somebody about some political views, and he called me, man, can you believe that she thinks, and I'm like, okay, I got you, I hear what you're saying. But I said, here's the thing, you can't want to be opinionated and not expect opinion.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. It don't work that way. You know what I mean? Yep. So, man, Kai, this is turned to a really dope conversation, man. We about
Yeah,
an
I'm sorry we
hour.
pivoted.
No,
this is great.
No,
I know.
this is guys.
We
again,
love these type of conversations.
this is what again me and Skeens talk about with this show. We don't come in with a whole bunch of. We want to have natural, organic conversations.
Right.
And our intent with the show, Kai, and Kai is a prime example of it. We know so many dope people. A lot of times we get caught up in seeing quote unquote famous people. But I'm letting us know, I know that I got people that I can reach and touch that are inspirational right here in my level.
You,
know what I
tell
mean?
them I'm dope in real life.
You know what I'm saying? In real life. In real life. Go ahead, Skeen. What you
As
got?
well as myth busting that men can't communicate.
Yes, absolutely. Men can communicate. This is it. 3 men sitting here. Skeen's kind of, he playing the back because he don't know Kai like that. But again,
This is great. But you also have to know your place.
Absolutely.
I talk a lot.
No,
and I apologize.
I love to listen.
Yeah, we do. And that's another part of communicating is being a great listener. But Kai, I appreciate the dialogue, brother. I mean, to be honest with you, bro, I would love to have you back multiple times if that's cool. I'll call you and let you know. You know what I'm saying?
Got you, man. And I did not curse. Now
y'all, if you've ever seen, hey, now Kai, this should show you. I was telling my wife, I said, "Hey, babe, we have a Kai on the show, and we're gonna set it up and da. And she's like, "Oh, the one to be talking crazy?" I said, "Yeah, him." The one to be on your post? I said, "Yeah, that's him." So, I appreciate it, my brother. I can't say it enough how much I appreciate the time and the conversation, y'all.
Man, I love you, man.
We would love to have. I think Kai will be on often as we're talking about certain things, and so I get with you guys, with you, Kai. But I love you too, my brother. And
yeah, love to y'all, and nice to meet you, Steve.
You as well.
And tell your pops peace to your dad too.
All right, man.
Your
I appreciate you. Yeah, of course, my twin that I look just like at 6 years old, and Kai said I had an old face. But anyway, until next time, guys, this is another episode of How Did We Get Here? And we'll holler at y'all on the next one.